Hi, welcome to Talk About here on Shaw TV North Island. Thanks for tuning in. We've got another good show. They're all good, but this one might be even better than normal. We've got two guys, Steve Watson from BC Hydro and Howie Siemens from the Strathcona Regional District. He's the Protective Services Coordinator, and we're going to be talking about earthquake preparedness and maybe a few other issues. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in. Well, you started in December with this emergency preparedness program. I gather the Hydro had surveyed some dams for earthquake vulnerability and realized it was, we got to fix those. So there's a 20-year program underway to do that. But in the meantime, you've done a lot of hard work getting around to people, organizing public meetings. How's it going? How many people have you reached, do you think?
Well, I think it's gone well. We weren't sure how to kind of roll this out in what manner, so we worked with the City of Cam River, Ron Neufeld, of course Howie Siemens with the Regional District, and we tried to determine the best way to reach the people. So the city issued a bunch of letters to people in the evacuation area. We had public sessions at the Tidemark Theatre. There was 3 of them. We only had about, I think, 120, 130 people for that.
Like you announced it, and then suddenly there were these 3 meetings. So
and fair enough. And so, but we've met with the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement Association, the Campbellton Res Association. The media's been great, and thank you for this in terms of the coverage. So, we had a near flood event in early mid-December, so we thought that might. But I think so far it's been rolling out quite well.
Yeah. Howie, from your perspective, how's it been going?
I was hoping the numbers would be higher in all the turnouts, but my attitude is basically if we can get the message out to a few people, they definitely get prepared. They can share it with their neighbors and others in the community. And we are seeing some positive spins. It's taken a while for, I think, communities to really get on board what Stephen and I have been trying to do. And I think the 1700 earthquake event, the celebration that's just as occurring on January 26th has really started some of that to happen. We've had some enrollments in sessions now that have increased. So
1700s?
The catastrophic earthquake event that we talk about in our sessions, one of the largest ones that happened on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So
do you know the date that happened?
January 26th. Actually, that's why.
That's
why
Japan.
So Japan in record history has. They found a rogue tsunami that hit their shorelines, and they've traced it back into history now that actually was generated from the west coast of Vancouver.
And I think First Nations have a oral history of it too.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. This is a diversion, but I understand. I don't know if it was the same event, but Nitnat Lake, or is it Cowichan Lake? Anyway, I think it was one of the big lakes. Cowichan used to flow one way, and the earthquake changed it, and it flows the other way now.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a big quake. And I think that's the point in the sense, like we in the last few weeks we've had several quakes, including one off of Tofino, and a few days ago there was one south of the Charlottes. That's not the issue, is it? Little ones.
As in being the big ones? These are triggers towards the big one? No, those are just earthquakes that happen all the time. Again, we're both not seismic experts, but the information that we have is we get them all the time. Sometimes the reports I generate for my preparedness sessions, we can get in a month 30 to 100 different events. And this is not a warning. It's just basically telling you that we are seismic in this area, and it's time to prepare.
Well, I guess to that, the so-called big one is supposed to happen on an average about every 500 years. And so the window's around 250 to about, I think it's 800 years. And so we're in that. It's just a matter of when. So it could happen tomorrow or 100 years from now. But for hydro, we have a dam safety program. We're always looking at our facilities. We upgraded our seismic model on the ground movement that could take place from a major earthquake. And so from that, yes, as you mentioned, we're doing a capital plan to upgrade those dams for that large earthquake, but there's that interim risk until that work is in place. So I'm very pleased to work with the Regional District and the City on communicating that interim risk until those facilities are upgraded.
I was a little shocked at the interim risk is 30 feet of water in Campbellton. I mean, is that right? 30 feet?
Yeah, so I guess going back, BC Hydro has a emergency response guide or plan that we've shared with the Regional District and City for many years. So we've always had these maps of where water could go and flood events and these kind of things. But with the risk that we've determined from the seismic study, we wanted to communicate that in a public fashion so that when people can survive that major earthquake, they also need to know about the dams and how they would perform. So, but it's the first time we've actually presented that in a public forum. They've kind of been confidential. Yeah. And so it's important for people to know that once that earthquake happens that, first of all, it's a major earthquake where people would not be able to stand. So it's really important to say it's not just a low to moderate, it's a major earthquake. There'd be destruction all through Cam River itself. Yeah. And so if we get that event, there's 3 dams in the Cam River system and 2 of them are earthfill. And we feel that if we get that major event, they could be compromised. So we have the worst case scenario of John Hart Dam or a Strathcona Dam failing, one or both. And so basically how quickly the water could arrive, where it would go, and how deep.
I was surprised, it's 30 minutes, I think you were saying, and it seems to me, why isn't it faster?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to say, and we get this question a lot, is how quickly would the water arrive and how, it's a big wave. It's not like it's going to kind of disintegrate like it does in a movie and all this wall of water comes down, but still, we have to plan for the worst case scenario. So yes, I mean, by just below the John Hart Dam, the generating station water could arrive within 20 minutes, be about 20 meters deep, and then from there down to the highway bridge and, the estuary, it's half an hour to an hour, a little bit beyond that, out towards Shoppers Row, but the depth is 11 meters by the Cam River up to 2-3 meters on the outer edges. So, it's going to likely kind of slowly build and peak and then go back down again, but people need to be prepared to move outside of that evacuation area should that major earthquake take place.
Howie, one of the things that concerns me about this, and one of the reasons I'm happy to do the show, is the effect on shut-ins. We have a lot of seniors in the Campbellton area and the downtown area that aren't very mobile. So everybody will feel the quake. I saw that quote from you. It was like, the warning is the quake. But what can we do for shut-ins?
Well, some of the stuff that we're doing right now is I actually have gone into some of the facilities that, the long-term care facilities, Seth Norton facility, where there are maybe people with disability issues or not be able to get out on their own. And that's part of the preparedness side, is taking care of your neighbor. So I come in and tell them, are there people in your complex here that are able-bodied, and are you checking on those who are not able? So that when this event when it does occur, and hopefully it's not going to be the catastrophic failure of the dam, but they'll still need to know what to do in an earthquake event, is that they're going to check on their neighbors, those loved ones that will need assistance, and have a plan in place. So what is it where we're going to go? How are we going to move them? Are they in a wheelchair or power scooters? How are we getting them down from the 3rd floor if there's no elevator access? So those are the things I talk about, and not that I can have a solution for everything, but it's about thinking about it in advance and coming in with possible solutions for them. So.
Getting a plan. Now, I saw you guys at the presentation at the Enterprise Center to the business community, because the businesses have to plan too. But this idea of everybody needs to develop a plan, is that the key message?
From my view, it definitely is. I mean, it starts with individuals, right? So being individually prepared and knowing what you can take care of yourself, that makes you able to then take care of others in your neighborhood or loved ones, your adult family members. Then it basically works out to making sure your family's okay. So if you're separated, some kids are in school, what's their emergency plan with the school, who's taking care of them? If those things are all set in place, then you're going to do a lot better after an event. The stress level will be a lot lower than if you haven't taken any steps to do that. And it is key for businesses as well. For me as an emergency coordinator, I turn to a lot of the local businesses for providing services to the people who are affected by disasters. So accommodations, food, clothing. And so that is what I've been trying to do for the last couple of years, is really work with the businesses to know the importance of being prepared, having their workers prepared, because if they're not prepared, who's going to run your business, and who am I going to come to in a local community to help others that are affected by disaster?
The presentation you had at the Enterprise Center included a display of emergency supplies and emergency kits and all that. And I gathered from that the Home Hardware has brought in some special stuff. And Howie just told me there's a number of businesses in town now that are supplying emergency kits. But what should people have on hand?
Well, it's your key immediate needs would be, water, supply of food that's not going to go bad. I remember the first time I was doing this, people were putting their grab-and-go kits, a backpack full of stuff, and they were putting canned goods in. And I was saying, well, you're going to be walking maybe miles to the next, place where you're going to feel safe, and you won't be wanting carrying cans around. So dehydrated goods and things like that, right? Yeah. But on our Strathcona website, our emergency page, we do have a list of things that should go in a grab-and-go or family kit, something that you would have stored in a shed outside or your garage. That actually will walk you through those details, like 2 liters of water per person.
Yeah, it just occurred to me, storing your emergency kit in the basement in the corner behind a bunch of luggage, maybe it's not accessible.
That's a good point. Again, having a place where it's in a closet on your way out of the building. So one of the things we really want to promote too in part of preparedness, especially when the water's going to arrive in our flood in areas, right? Is that you want to have something that you can grab really quickly, that's light, that represents each one of the members of your family or your business, right? I have a grab and go kit under my desk and one in my vehicle. Right, just so that if I have to leave from work, I know where to get it, and I can put it on my back and carry it away with me. Right, so those are the key pieces of being ready, is having those kits, easy to get them, not stored, lay down where you have to dig through a bunch of pile of rubble if it's an earthquake that occurs. Right, that's very important.
I was surprised at the Enterprise Center where somebody had water in pouches, as opposed to just like bottles, but.
And again, the pouches are a lot easier to carry than the plastic bottles. And then when you're done with the bottles, you throw them away, or you have to carry them with you, right? So there are different types of emergency preparedness supplies out there. And as you pointed out, lots of our suppliers, companies within Campbell River actually are doing that with, Monk's Office Supply, Canadian Tire, Home Depot, St. John Ambulance. They all have their different versions of those kits, and a lot of them do have the foiled water supply. Yeah.
Well, I asked the lady from Home Hardware, how much do these cost, and it's ka-ching, it's $100 and some odd bucks.
Yeah, so that's another piece. It's emergency kit usually doesn't take a lot to put together. If you're procrastinating, you want to do it quickly, yes, you can go and buy an expensive kit for your family. It could run you from $150 to $300, depending on the size of your family. But a lot of times, a lot of us have a junk drawer, whether we have supplies, extra flashlights, batteries that are stored in there. We may have camping goods that are, that we have stored away down in our basements or in our crawl spaces. Start looking in your own home, and grab a backpack and start looking in your own and start filling it that way, and that can make it a lot cheaper.
That's kind of what I've done, but I'm not convinced the disaster is tomorrow. But I've got a tent, and a tent is part of the supply, isn't it?
Well, again, if it's a long-term event where it's best for you to stay where you are and your home is not safe, that may be something that you would want to have resources to. And even when I learned this as emergency coordinator, I used to store things in the basement because that's where water lasts the longest, they say, because it's cool and dark. But now I have my shed outside, and I put all my camping gear and my big family kit out there, so that a little shed falls over on me, it doesn't take me a lot to get to it.
Yeah. Steve, this kind of a program is not cheap. Like you've been at several events and, booking rooms. How much roughly is the budget for it? Or is it coming out of ordinary budgets and this year we're focusing on that?
Yeah, we haven't really had a set budget. I mean, we have an idea for certain events, like kind of hard costs. A lot of it's, my time and Howie's time and things like that. So the city and the regional district and Hydro have kind of put in mostly in kind. But we have provided, we printed about 5,000 brochures, shared them. The Tidemark Theatre, we booked that. So, it's a fair amount. I think if you combine within all organizations, leading up to this in a few months, it's probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to communicate. So it's not insignificant. And it's an important message. And I guess the other side of it is we're talking about major earthquakes. I think we still have to realize that the risk of floods will never go away. And so earthquakes, we look to have to be able to handle that in 20 plus years, but flood events are year to year. So that's, people need to remind.
As we've seen this year.
That's right.
That 5-day inflow there, and you know, we came this close to flooding Campbellton. Not that there would have been a lot over the, but you know, last time you were on, I congratulated you for doing a brilliant job of, and Hydro, I mean, but Steve too, of managing the water for the salmon. But more recently, you managed it to avoid a flood.
Yeah, that was, you know, it's remarkable when we went such a dry 12-month period and the skies opened up and we actually hadn't spilled water down Outfalls Canyon in 2 years. Then we released some in October, and then we tried to get down. Another storm would hit, and we tried to release some water, and then this event in December. So yeah, it was the largest water inflows we've had into the system in our records, which is 51 years. And so we were close. We pushed the envelope with the high tides and the Quincy River flows, and we were actually in the upper. We were able to absorb all those rains. But we were about 75 centimeters from getting to a point in the reservoir, whatever comes in goes out, and not backing off for the high tides and those kind of things. So it was, we were fortunate to manage through this, but
So earthquake isn't the only emergency. It could be a major rain event.
That's right. I think the difference is, you know, in a rain event, I worked with Howie and the city on, you know, that's days, if not weeks, in terms of the start of the event to an actual downstream flooding. Whereas an earthquake is, you know, seconds. It's now. So, you know, through this study, we found that the earthquake, which is, you know, about a 9 magnitude, could last about 3 minutes long. That's a long time. And so, you know, people talk about a warning system. I think that's the warning, is that if you can't stand, you need to move out of the evacuation area. But
I'd like to return to where we are in the water if there's time. But where in Campbell River should people go? If they feel the big one and you're living in Campbellton, which is sort of ground zero for this, where do you go?
So that's a good question, John. So basically, what we've created, working with Hydro and the province emergency management of BC, is a mapping guideline, and I'm not sure how we can get that up there for you. But basically, that is where severe weather event could flood, as well as the earthquake event could flood. So anything outside that red zone, the white and green area, is the safe area, and that's where people first will need to head right away after
just
a
get up high on
catastrophic
the
earthquake.
bank is basically.
And some of the sessions we've been to, we've talked to neighbors that are in the sort of the 30-minute window, and some of them have come back to me and actually said, you know what, we went home that night and we did a little walk up the hill, and it didn't take us too long, you know, to get up to a high enough level that they felt safe, and that's what we want you to do. This is the first time that it's been this information has been shared with the public, and so we want the public to take action and say, okay, if I work or live in this area, where can I get based on the information that's provided to us?
When I first came back to Campbell River, I was surprised that the city council people of the day were concerned about a big flood in Campbellton, and I hadn't heard anything about that. But historically, there have been big floods in Campbellton.
There has. It's great to have a partner like Hydro and Stephen. Stephen does a great job in communicating to us through email or calling telephone sessions to give us a really good heads up of what could be rolling in. I mean, we do our own modernized emergency program looking at weather forecasts. But I know we've come close a couple times since I've doing this role in 6 years, where we've gone and door knocked on members of Campbell River and said, you know, just a heads up that this storm event may cause some isolated flooding. And as we saw on December 8th, I think that's the most severe one I've experienced in my time here. And we did the exact same thing. We did some pre-work with neighbors and community members who were in the high risk area.
There was a couple of low-lying areas that the city and the regional district targeted with sandbagging, so it stayed in the riverbank. So, so that was good. I mean, Hydro, we have our meteorologist, a weatherman, and then he has a forecast, which we put out 5 days. So we have hydrologists to take that rain, precipitation levels, and figure out how much water is going to come into the system. Then we have our engineers, and we figured out what the flow rates and discharges, so we can map out where the reservoir may go. In this particular event in December, it got worse and worse every day. It was a big event.
Yeah. Do you have one weatherman for the whole province, or?
We have a couple
Yeah.
based in Lower Mainland, and they have all different types of models that they look at.
Yeah.
The challenge with what we don't like is Pineapple Express or subtropical storms, which would hit. And
Yeah.
thankfully, we had a low snowpack. In fact, it's still very low.
Yeah.
But if we had more snow melt, that would have been a different story.
Actually, I heard on the news this morning that the snow levels on Vancouver Island are abnormally low right now.
Yeah. We were tracking near historical lows last year, and we're not too far above those right now.
Yeah.
So we did have a bit of snow, but of course, with the warm weather we've had the last few weeks, it's melting again. So it's not looking too good.
But we can still get big snow dumps in March and April.
Yeah, February, March. That's right. The snowpack doesn't peak until actually around early May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, too early to panic, folks.
That's right.
There's anyway. It's good that it's well managed. This is tangential a bit, but you know, Winnipeg yesterday, everybody in town suddenly has to have boiled water or bottled water because of an E. coli scare.
For us in emergency planning, again, like we've done with hydro, we have our operational guidelines that we review every year. We do that with the Island Health. We look at those kinds of concerns, and we look for them as the lead and what directions we're going to take. So, as you probably have just know from the Comox Valley and their boil water, that's I think just ended yesterday.
6 weeks.
Right, 6 weeks. So we work very closely in emergency planning to look at what those kinds of issues will bring us, and then start again doing the preparedness side. And a lot of it is the public taking steps. We can't do a lot until we know exactly the big picture.
Yeah.
But the public can do things to to be able to address
and
that.
people with compromised immune systems, they're like, if I drank water with a bit of E. coli in it, I'd probably be fine because I'm pretty healthy. But there's other people that just the slightest little thing can send them off.
Yeah, and again, it's about getting the messaging out as quickly as we can with that information, and that's where it's been great to have social media. And I know that you're a user of it, and I'm becoming one for my position.
I go up and down.
Right, so that's another way. Is communication is key. We need to get information that about what's coming up, or what information. How do you do to do boil water? How long has it got to boil? We post that information out there to many different avenues, and it's up to the public to sort of look for that piece of information.
I found it interesting that both the city and Hydro refer people to the Strathcona Regional District website. Why is that?
The Strathcona Regional District provides a regional emergency preparedness service. So we support all the local governments within the Strathcona regional boundaries.
And of course, the city is part of the Strathcona Regional District Board as well.
But to add though, the city does have a website on this, and in fact, I encourage people to check out. We actually did a film at the Tidemark Theatre, and it's on the city's web page. It's an hour long or more, and it's the presentations from Natural Resources Canada on earthquakes. I'm talking about the hydro system, and Howie about emergency planning, and I encourage people to check that out. It's almost like you're there. It was well filmed.
www.campbellriver.ca?
Yes. Yeah.
And then www.strathconard.ca.
Yes.
Or nowadays, just Google it, John.
Yeah, just Google, yes.
What's that, the Google? I heard John Horgan yesterday refer to the Twitter as if he didn't know what he was saying. George Bush. George Bush, by the way, said a thing about the internet's plural, and he got dumped on for being ignorant, and actually he was correct, because even back then there were more than one internet. Steve, hydro and water, Hydro provides the water here in Campbell River, but like in Courtenay, is that a hydro water system as well?
It's very similar. I mean, BC Hydro, we have water licenses through the Control of Water Rights, and so we operate for hydroelectric power. But the City of Campbell River and the Comox Valley Regional District later on said, "Oh, this is great! You've got a reservoir. Can we tap into that?" And so for many years, we've been providing that, where they draw the water off the penstock. And that's the same thing in Campbell River as in Courtenay. So the Comox Valley system is much smaller than Campbell River.
And then Campbell River's getting a new intake as part of the John Hart project.
That's right. So
that's going to be a big deal.
as we talked about with even a low to moderate earthquake would put the existing penstocks and generating station at risk. putting the city out of water. So
Yeah.
indirectly, the water system the city has will be much improved. So they're building a detached water main that's going to go into the John Hart Reservoir and below the drawdown zone, because in an earthquake we'll draw down the reservoir about 10 meters to protect at least ease of pressure in the dam. So they'll be safe that way too. So that's a good news story.
Well, water everywhere, not a drop to drink, because it's full of stuff. So yes, even though Campbell River has a lot of great water, emergency preparedness includes having safe, clean water on hand. Now, substation. This was quite a bit of a surprise. Campbell River's growth prompts $25 million electrical upgrade on top of a $1 billion dam, that's a round number, and then the 20-year renewal of the dams for several hundreds of millions. Now you're doing an upgrade too for the substation. Why is that?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of focus on the generation side of our business with dam safety and the John Hart Generating Station replacement project, but a really important element of that is keeping the lights on. So, people probably would think there's an abundance of power in the distribution system in the area, excuse me, with Timber West Mill shutting down and the Catalyst shutting down and those kind of things. But the Catalyst site was fed off the transmission system. There's 2 substations that feed customers in the Campbell River area, one in Oyster River and one in Campbell River Substation just off 7th.
Yeah, I haven't seen the one off 7th.
Yeah, it's just off the top of 7th.
Okay.
And it's perfectly located in the sense that it's right in the city, but no one really knows where it is.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. That's a good location for a substation. So yeah, we have 2 transformers. We're going to add a 3rd. Yeah. And we're going to provide up to 4 new circuits into the grid. So there's been a lot of growth and development over the last number of years, and more planned, especially southern Campbell River area. Yeah. And so, it's with the substation, the new circuits going to come out, that'll foster that economic development for many decades.
That's great. And there's a new substation going north of Buckley Bay.
Yeah, that's right. That's a brand new substation, the Buckley Bay substation project. It's about $28 million and then $11 million of tying in the circuits there. So that's going to be in service next winter, end of 2015. So that'll allow 3 substations in the Comox Valley. So it's about growth and reliability and working with municipalities and understanding where that growth is coming from and planning for that, right? Because we wouldn't want people coming into the grid and saying, "Oh, sorry, we can't connect. We don't have capacity." So it's important to have that.
Yeah. You would think that Vancouver Island would be self-sufficient in electricity with all of the water and the plants around, but it isn't, is it?
No, we rely for about 2/3 of our power from the mainland. It's Peace Columbia systems.
Yeah. And the underwater.
It's undersea cables from Tawasin to Duncan. Dunsmuir is our main line, Tuxedo Island to north of Qualicum Beach. Yeah. So those they can generally carry the load on the island, but and as reference, we generate about 500 megawatts in Cam River between the natural gas fire generating station and BC Hydro system. So we're kind of, like I say, the power capital of Vancouver Island in terms of Cam River. So we're well positioned, but still, to that situation, the distribution, the smaller network needs to be upgraded so that we can provide power to those customers.
Well, thank you both for keeping the lights on and keeping us safe. Was there something you want to add that I haven't touched?
The only last message I would is just take a moment and start preparedness now, so that you're prepared for the next event, whatever that might be, a severe weather event. Or flooding in the Campbellton area. So
good. Well,
thanks.
Thank you both. Yeah, okay. Well, there's Talk About again. We're on YouTube as well. Shaw TV North Island. Google it. You'll find it. Google YouTube Shaw TV North Island. You'll see all the Talk About shows. A lot of other stuff from Shaw as well. So, thank you, volunteers. Thank you, Chaz, and thank you, Shaw, for putting on Talk About.